Tonight, two young boys found dead in their Brampton home, their father arrested for murder.
I'm shocked. I couldn't sleep last night.
A community in mourning and looking for answers in the wake of the tragedy. Plus,
our crashes were double or triple normally what we'd see on a normal commute into work.
a hectic day on the roads. The first snowfall takes its toll on the commute. And a call for help as seniors are forced out of their home. But one resident is fighting to stay. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. There's still much shock in a Brampton neighborhood tonight after the death of two brothers. Peel police aren't saying how they died, but they have charged their father with first-degree murder. Angelina King joins us live from outside the home near Sandalwood Parkway in Credit View in Brampton. Angelina?
Well, it's now been 24 hours since that initial 911 call. Police are still on scene, although it has been very quiet here tonight. But today in the neighborhood, a sense of shock, devastation, and just so many questions about what happened inside of this home. By all accounts from neighbors, the family was outgoing, friendly, the parents often stopping to chat and just say hello. People here say that nobody would have ever guessed that anything was wrong. On a quiet residential crescent, the lights on the main floor of the family's house remain on as police investigate what led to the murder of two brothers found dead inside their own home. Neighbors identify them as Jonathan and Nicholas Bastidas, just 12 and 9 years old, saying they liked walking their dog and playing outside.
They're nice, happy kids.
Around 11 o'clock last night, someone from inside the home called police for medical help. Today, the boy's father, 52-year-old Edwin Bastidas, was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, meaning police believe there was some sort of planning and deliberation.
I'm shocked. I couldn't sleep last night because I can see them with their parents all the time.
Police didn't say who was inside the home when they arrived, who called 911, or how the boys died, but they did say,
when we attended, we didn't find any obvious signs of trauma to the children. It was a little bit later on that it was determined to be a suspicious death in both cases.
Neighbors say the boys lived with their mother, father, and an aunt.
Nothing unusual about the parents. They're friends of the family. We're friends with them. I mean, we talk. We've gone out together.
Paul Rodriguez says his kids went to daycare with the brothers, and his youngest goes to the school they attended.
For Halloween, they came by with their dog, and we were talking. And my wife is closer than I am with the husband, and I'm devastated. I don't even know how to react, to be honest.
Multiple sources told CBC News the older brother, Jonathan, had autism. Kids who knew him say he was friendly and nice. We've blurred their faces because of their age.
Yeah, he was a really nice kid, always friendly with anyone. He didn't really cause any trouble, and he knew all the teachers.
Police officers were at St. Bonaventure School today, where the flag was lowered to half staff. The Dufferin Peel School Board says counselors are available at the school. Police say this crime not only hits the community hard, but first responders too.
Anytime you go to any death, but especially when it is children, it's tough. It's hard.
Police say there are no other suspects at this point, so no risk to public safety, but they are asking anybody with information to contact them, saying that this investigation is far from over. Bastidas made a brief appearance in court today and has been remanded to a facility in Milton. Mike?
Okay, Angelina, thank you. Well, Devontae Miller faced cross-examination today at the trial of an off-duty Toronto police officer and his brother. Michael and Christian Theriault are facing aggravated assault and obstructing justice charges in connection with a serious assault on Miller nearly 3 years ago. As Lorenda Redekop tells us, a lawyer spent the day trying to find inconsistencies in Miller's version of events.
Devontae Miller arrives for what turns out to be a much different day in court. Tense at times, Miller frustrated, under cross-examination by Michael Lacey. He's the lawyer for Michael Theriault, the Toronto police officer off duty that night in 2016. Lacey pointed to inconsistencies between Miller's statements now versus earlier. First, he plays part of Miller's 911 call that night.
911, bro.
Fire, police, fire.
911. You're under arrest.
Hello? Hello?
It's 911. You're under arrest.
Hello?
I know.
Previously in this legal process, Miller says he was never told he was under arrest. He said to the court that his response of, "I know," is not to being told that, and adds that he always thought the question was whether he was told he was under arrest before the altercation. Miller says by the 911 call, the horrific beating he described yesterday was done. Lacey brought up evidence photos. One example, a blue Bic lighter, something Miller identified as his yesterday. Previously, he didn't recognize it. Lacey also shows the photo of a pair of black gloves. Miller doesn't recognize them. Lacey asks, "Did you know that your DNA was found inside those gloves?" The chance of the DNA not being Miller's? 1 in 440 quadrillion. Miller suggests it was his blood or spit from that night. Lacey also suggests Miller and his two friends were car hopping, something one of Miller's friends testified to. The Terrio brothers' account is that Miller was in their parents' truck and they chased him, with Miller attacking them with a pipe. Miller told Lacey, "With all due respect, I'm not trying to be a storyteller up here," and said he feels like he's expected to remember every word he's said over the past 3 years. The cross-examination continues tomorrow in a trial that's coming close to being finished. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Oshawa.
Well, the gun violence plaguing our city continued overnight with 6 separate shootings. One person was killed and 3 others were injured. Man walked into a bar on Jane Street near Lawrence and opened fire. 2 men were shot. 1 died on scene. He's been identified as 20-year-old Migana Idris. The second was taken to hospital after being shot several times and remains in serious condition. And another shooting, a short drive to the east at Lawrence and Dufferin. 2 cars were seen fleeing that area. Police believe a minor crash happened, and shortly after, a vehicle riddled with bullets showed up at a nearby hospital. The man who had been shot made his way inside. He was rushed to a trauma center with critical injuries. And a man was shot on a residential street near Gerrard and Greenwood Avenue around 4 a.m. The victim there was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. Police are asking anyone with information on any of these shootings to come forward. And Toronto police releasing a sketch of a man they're trying to identify in connection with an arson near Jarvis and Shooter. Witnesses say they saw him leaving the fire as emergency crews arrived on scene. This broke out early last Saturday. And while crews were trying to bring the flames under control, 2 firefighters fell from the building's roof. One of them was seriously injured. Well, it was the first snowfall of the year this morning. It made for a lot of headaches, especially on our roads. Collisions and slowdowns and even 1 death. Greg Ross gives us a roundup of the cold, wet weather we faced today.
It was a messy morning.
OPP Sergeant Kerry Schmidt says it's to be expected when we get our first snowfall of the season.
Our crashes were double or triple normally what we'd see on a normal commute into work. Hundreds of crashes. We had probably 40 or 50 crashes at any given time through the morning rush hour periods.
On Highway 12 near Port Perry, a tow truck driver was hit and killed while trying to pull another car out of the ditch.
The tow truck driver was outside of his vehicle. He was struck by this third vehicle and he was killed.
He says oftentimes people don't adjust their driving habits in order to handle the slick conditions, speed being the biggest problem.
Your stopping distance, your controllability of your vehicle is going to be reduced, and it's going to cause problems if you're not driving accordingly.
I woke up this morning, I saw the snow, and I knew it was going to be a busy day.
Frisk Veneziano is the co-owner of CarStar Collision Center in Brampton. Some of the cars involved in those collisions were brought onto his lot this morning.
As you can see, severe suspension damage and some serious body damage to the vehicle also.
And there was one other thing we noticed about this car.
As you can notice, they aren't having any snow tires here.
I'm sure the tire shops are having a lineup of cars right now getting their snow tires installed.
Not installing snow tires is just one of the things people neglect to do to ensure their safety while driving in the snow.
I saw plenty of cars with still snow on their hoods and snow on their windshields, and whatever the wipers would wipe off is all that they would wipe because they're not ready for it.
Schmidt says in snowy conditions, it's a good idea to leave your house a little bit earlier. Give yourself lots of extra time. It's also important to make sure you clear all of the snow off of your car before driving. And the other important thing is to make sure you drive according to the conditions. So if it's snowy or icy on the roads, it's a good idea to slow down. Greg Ross, CBC News, Vaughan.
Colin Kennedy's here with the first look at the forecast. Now that we've got our scarves and gloves and hats out, we've got to put them to good use tomorrow morning.
Oh, and we will need those tomorrow morning, Mike. You're so right, because we're again having to talk about not just the temperature, what it's falling to, but the wind chill in there. So I'm going to explain what that's going to be looking like. I do just want to bring up the snow squall warnings. So, of course, they had been watches. They were upgraded to warnings. The areas you see here in white, the others are weather advisories. But in white here is where we're looking at some of those squalls as that west to northwesterly wind comes across the lake and has enough of a fetch that we get into those streamers, in some cases not so little, because locally we're looking at 20 to 30 centimeters before these wind down towards tomorrow afternoon. You can see some of them on the models here really wanting to come off Georgian Bay and Lake Huron, and that's why even towards London you may be picking up like another 10 centimeters or something in that corridor as we go into tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, we just see some of that light flurry activity returning towards the GTA again tomorrow afternoon, but fairly isolated in nature. And other than that, there will be some sunshine tomorrow, but it's the start to the day where that temperature overnight falls to -5, and then factor in the winds. They don't even need to be that strong, 10 to 20 kilometers an hour. It's going to feel like -8 to actually -12, especially when you get that wind up there towards that 20. Tomorrow afternoon, 1 degree. Flurries returning towards us. And as for the weekend, we get a little bit of a warm-up, Mike. I'll explain that coming up.
Something to look forward to. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
I was just shocked. I just couldn't believe it. How could they come along and say that in a few months we had to be out of here?
Just a few months ago, there were 150 seniors living in this building. Today, it's under new ownership, and there are just 2 remaining. I'm Nick Boisvert. Coming up, we'll explain what happened and check in on one of the last holdouts.
Education unions in this province are sounding the alarm over a bill passed today that caps public sector wage hikes. The Ford government put forward Bill 124. It caps wage increases at an average of 1% annually for the next 3 years. Now, in a statement, the government called it part of a fair and prudent plan. Ontario's education workers saying they'll go to court to challenge the bill. 4 of those unions are currently in negotiations with the province for a new collective agreement. The Ontario government is launching a review of the Peel District School Board after allegations of anti-black racism. Education Minister Stephen Lecce announcing the review in a statement released today. According to the minister, concerns about anti-black racism have been raised by students, families, and the board's director of education. A 2016 report from the Peel Board found young black men reported experiencing bias and racism in Peel classrooms. Well, a few months ago, a Toronto seniors building was home to some 150 residents. Today, there are just 2 left. They're being forced to move out after the building was sold earlier this summer. But one of the last holdouts says she's going to keep fighting. Nick Boisvert has her story.
For the last 5 years, Betty Robinson has been comfortable and happy at her Rosedale apartment. That all changed in July when the building was sold.
I was just shocked. I just couldn't believe it. How could they come along and say that in a few months we had to be out of here?
That deadline is approaching fast. At the end of the month, Davenhill Senior Living says it'll officially close, and along with it, phone lines, food service, and security. The 97-year-old calls it a threat.
There are 2 of us left here, and the people that have gone haven't gone willingly, in a sense. They've gone because they're frightened.
The notices are now piling up, asking her to find a new home urgently. Davenhill has provided some help for the displaced residents, including offering a relocation consultant and helping people with their moves. The local MPP says that's not enough to make things right. Jessica Bell raised the issue at Queen's Park today. She says the mass exodus of 150 seniors should have never happened.
The forced removal of these seniors is legal, but it's unethical.
During question period, the Ford government said Davenhill wasn't safe.
I got the report from the retirement home authority, and they told me that the home actually didn't provide safe and secure environment for the seniors.
But people who lived there say that wasn't the case, and there's a worry Davenhill could set a dangerous precedent.
The Davenhill non-eviction process lays a template for every developer who wants to kick people out of their homes in the city for redevelopment.
Robinson won't make that easy.
Why is it that you're still here when everyone else
I'm
is
still
gone?
here because this is where I want to live.
And Robinson says she will leave if she no longer feels safe in her home. Nick Boisvert, CBC News, Toronto.
And to feel safe.
Matthews picks it up once more. He'll shoot.
The Leafs taking on the Vegas Golden Knights at home tonight. Team looking for their 3rd straight win for the first time this season. Highlights coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
The Leafs looking to make it 3 straight victories in a row as they host the Golden Knights tonight. The game was scoreless until the third. Max Pacioretty is able to give Vegas a 1-0 lead. Leafs managed to tie it on their 5th power play of the game. Austin Matthews scoring his 13th of the year. The game would need overtime. And with just over 2 minutes to go, it's Mitch Marner feeding John Tavares for the one-timer game winner. That's the captain's 4th of the season. He gives the Leafs the 2-1 win. And the Toronto FC is heading to the Pacific Northwest for their chance at the MLS Cup, taking on the Seattle Sounders this weekend.
These games, it's hard to say, but I think the game will start off initially with a fair amount of intensity to it and speed to it, and then again, once the game gets going, we'll see kind of how it plays from there.
Toronto beat the defending champions Atlanta United FC last week. That secured a spot in the Cup final for the 3rd time in 4 years. After having their last practice here at the BMO training grounds, the team left for Seattle today. Focus now turns to the big game on Sunday.
I like to think it's just a balance between knowing we're playing a special game, but also getting ready like we've been getting ready and preparing for the past games this year. You know, if we're here, it's because we deserve it, and we've been doing things the right way. I think we're ready, and we're not about to change anything in terms of our mindset and our focus.
The game will take place at the CenturyLink Field in Seattle Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And Toronto's rugby team, the Wolfpack, making international rugby news tonight with the signing of a player considered to be one of the best in the world, New Zealand superstar Sonny Bill Williams.
Hey guys, Sonny here. Just a quick message to the Toronto fans and team. I'm looking forward to getting over there. Just want to say that I'm not coming over for a holiday, although my son might be. I'm coming over to do some work, and God willing, we can have a successful season on and off the field. Cheers, guys.
The Wolfpack making the announcement on Twitter with this video earlier today. The signing comes on the back of the Wolfpack's biggest year in the team's very short history. They were promoted to the Super League 2 years ahead of the team's goal. Now, Williams is just one of 20 players to have won multiple World Cups. He signed to a 2-year contract worth about $9 million. Colette's back with her extended forecast. It's going to be cold tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that glimmer of hope for the weekend you promised.
Yeah, there is a glimmer of hope. The temperature's coming up a little bit. There's going to be some active weather, though, to go along with that. So we have to talk all of that through. There's something the matter with this picture. And what I mean by that, for this time of year, I'd prefer to see the daytime highs, and it wouldn't be unusual to see them between 8, 9, maybe in a few cases up towards 10 degrees. Instead, this is what we're talking about, not even getting above freezing for Barrie, 3 degrees for Toronto, Markham, 2 degrees. So some very cold air that's moved in. The weekend does get a bit better, but then that cold air actually gets reinforced as we go into next week. So some of these squalls, I talked about these earlier in the show, yes, setting up with that northwesterly flow over the lakes, and you get into some heavier amounts and warnings in place. Those will start to, this is Friday morning, so sunshine around the GTA and around towards St. Catharines, Niagara, Hamilton, you're all looking pretty good. But as we get in towards the afternoon, these squalls will start, those banners will start to weaken a little bit too. And now, in between, some of those flurries in the afternoon may make their way down into the city, over towards Mississauga. Just be aware that you may have some isolated flurries returning tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, things kind of calm down a little bit as we go into later Friday into Saturday. Saturday starts off a little quieter, but we get into some flurries developing, and then it's really overnight Saturday into Sunday. We'll be seeing the system kind of moving through, and by Sunday could be getting into some showers as the temperatures come up a little bit. Now, negligible amounts. I know this model wants to put 4 centimeters down towards Toronto. This is further north, a couple centimeters, I think, that we will see. The higher amounts are still back here towards areas in the squalls. Overnight tonight, a very cold one in southwestern Ontario. The wind chill for tomorrow morning feeling like -8. A few flurries in your skies. Those should kind of dry up and you get into a better trend tomorrow, but not necessarily a warmer one, with the high only going to 3 degrees. Morning wind chills, here you go, more significant At times, as the winds blow, those will be dropping to that -10 to -12. And our highs tomorrow, even cooler in many cases than they were today. So Saturday, we get into that next system moving in, mostly coming as some light snow, then somewhat of a mix into some showers for Sunday. And this is what I mean by some slightly warmer temperatures, 4-6 degrees by Sunday. But unfortunately, you have to look past the weekend, and then you see there's that reinforcing cold air that comes back at us again.
Working the late shift, not looking forward to those 2 -7s.
No, of course not.
Thanks a lot, Colette.
You're welcome.
God's plan. God's plan. I hold back sometimes I won't. Yeah.
Well, you can call it Drake's plan to get richer. Aubrey has joined forces with Canada's largest cannabis company. We'll bring you that story after the break. You can call it a joint venture or even a dope deal. Whatever it is, Drake is now in the cannabis retail game. The Toronto rapper inked a deal with Canada's biggest cannabis producers, Canopy Growth. He'll take a 60% stake in a venture called More Life Growth. As part of the marketing campaign, Drake's company has been giving away flowers on the streets of Toronto. Don't worry, they're not the dried kind. Here's one woman's reaction to her bouquet.
I'm walking down the street, I'm out buying some stuff, I'm going on a little trip tomorrow, and somebody stops me and they're like, would you like a free bouquet? And I'm like, what's the catch? I said nothing, so I got this.
Now, the product put out by the More Life Growth Company is going to be centered around, quote, wellness, discovery, and overall personal growth. Well, that's it for us tonight. Tomorrow on Q, Tom Power speaks with Ringo Starr about his 20th solo album, as well as a new recording featuring all 4 Beatles. Before we go, we want to leave you with some shots of a dramatic scene over Genoa, Italy. Today, a series of water spouts swirled along that city's waterfront. Despite the threatening appearance, these conditions were actually calm. Weather experts say this type of water spout is not associated with thunderstorms and is not considered dangerous. See you tomorrow. Good night.